Today on the Coaching Life podcast.
There's so much of our lives that is lived during in-between times that we either use well or we waste it. And if you look back over the course of your life and you were to log every moment, every hour of your life, I would dare say there are a lot of hours. The majority of the time, the majority of the hours of your life is this in-between stuff.
Welcome back to the Coaching Life podcast. This is Pat Martin, and I'm here with my friend, Coach Chris Stewart. Coach, how are you today, man?
I'm just fine.
Good.
Just fine. Good. Just fine.
You know,
doing well.
It's the dawn of a new era, or a new normal, or a regular normal, a return to normal. A dawn of a return to normal, I think, is what I want to say. Because
pick one of those and let's go with it.
Because the recording studio is booked and we can't get in it.
Yeah.
Right?
We were actually going to use the recording studio, but we failed to schedule it for ourselves because it hasn't needed to be scheduled most of the year.
Right.
And so I just showed up and there was someone in there.
It's a good sign.
It got booked through our ambassador student who was working at the desk, and they're getting prepared for actually a big day of recording on Thursday for the McClure School at Ohio University. It's ITS Day, so it's a big day for you folks.
Yeah, great. That's good. That's awesome, right? That's a good. That's a great thing. It's a great thing.
It's great. Yeah, and it's great. I was delayed on getting you on this call because there were people in my building today providing tours for prospective students, and I got interrupted a couple times. Well, not interrupted. I was gladly willing to speak with visiting high school students and their families about coming to Ohio University because it was actually in person.
Right.
I saw an actual person.
Have you ever been around an individual that spends their time at home, like just taking care of kids, or maybe it's a stay-at-home parent that is just around a group of kids for a long time and they don't get any adult interaction, and then like if they they go to a party or something and you can't get them off of you, they're just so eager for that interaction. I envision that's how you were. Like you were just running around from person to person asking if you could help them because you wanted that interaction so much with the students. That's
no doubt.
That's great. That makes me
hungry. They're hungry.
It made my day that we couldn't get into the studio. I said that's a bad thing, but it's a good thing, and I would say the good thing overrides the bad thing. So that's
without a doubt.
That's a happy thought there.
Without a doubt.
Coach, I'm gonna say something to you. It might hurt your feelings a little bit, but I want you to respond to it.
I can handle it.
You probably can. Coach, baseball is a boring sport. Have you ever heard that?
Well, yeah, you hear it all the time.
Well, I mean, people say it because, and they're right, I think, maybe. Because, you spend a lot of time in baseball as a player, really, as a coach. And I guess, spectators go through this as well. But, we're going to focus on the player. Spend a lot of time just standing around doing absolutely nothing. Right? Absolutely nothing. You're just standing there, right? In between pitches. You're just standing there. There's nothing to do. You're just looking around, just a boring game.
That's what that's what the people who say it's boring think, actually, isn't it?
Right. I've heard that before.
And it's a yes and no answer to that statement.
It can't. Yeah, the answer is it can be boring, right?
By yeah, sure. If you don't know what to do in those in between moments, but yeah, you're right about that. But it's unfortunate that so many people who are around this game from the time they're little and even end up playing it at a fairly high level don't get that. Don't get the what should I be doing when I'm not actively engaged in the activity portions of the sport.
Right.
It's like when in the game of basketball, one of the things I like to do when I'm watching basketball is I like to watch the players when they don't have the ball, when the ball's away from them, whether it's defensively or offensively. Watch what they're doing. What do you do when the ball is away from you? Because I think that's a difference maker for a basketball player, from a great basketball player to someone who is just pretty decent.
Yeah.
The ball doesn't have to be in their hands for them to be an effective member of that offense, and the ball doesn't have to be near them for them to be an effective member of the defense. Certainly not. Not in covering the backside. But in baseball, there is a lot of downtime. It's not downtime. It's what we would call in between time, in between pitches, in between plays. And that's some of the most important parts of the game when it comes to being the best that you can possibly be, and really your team being the best it can possibly be.
Yeah. I mean, if you're, in those, I guess if you think that those in between moments are boring, then the times that you're not just doing nothing, they get very exciting very quick, and probably so excited, too much excitement for you, because if you wait until that moment that you're supposed to be doing something to do something in the game of baseball, you're probably not going to do it right very often, right? So
yeah, you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're going to be dealing with a lot of anxiety, a lot of pressure, sudden pressure, and both mentally and physically, because it's harder to make plays when you're not prepared to do it as well. Just to run and to field a ball or to throw a ball or swing a bat, any of those things, it becomes more difficult to do if you're not anticipating the right move, the right action.
Yeah, because you have to react. You have to instinctively react, and if you don't already have it played out in your mind, the various scenarios of what in what ways you should be reacting on the play, and you haven't already seen the picture, the little movie play out in your head of you making that play, then all of a sudden the ball is hit to you, or the play happens, you're on base and the play happens, and you're thinking all of a sudden, okay, wait, how many outs are there? Where are the base runners? What am I supposed to do right now? And it's too late. And that's you getting money out of the ATM there, or what's going on?
I'm baking something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I was taking the in between time as you were explaining what was going on there to prepare for lunch. So yeah, when, and I understand, that people might think that those in between moments are boring in baseball, but as a person that loves baseball, that's what makes the game so special to me, and I think it's what makes it so. Yeah. It makes it special. And it's one of the things that makes the game of baseball so difficult to play, because it takes focus and it takes discipline to be able to do it, to be able to handle those in between moments. It's part of the challenge, right? It's part of the competition. If a team or a player, a team of players, I guess you'd say, because baseball is unique in that way too, that it's a collection of individual efforts that determine the game. But as players and on a team, if you're better at managing those in between moments than the other team, you have a huge advantage in towards winning the game. I mean, it just provides a huge advantage to you. So it's one of those things that, yes, it's unique and it's different, but it's what makes the game great.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should talk a little bit about what some of the specifics are to that, so that people understand a little bit better what you and I are referring to here, instead of abstractly speaking. just, maybe somebody's going, okay, what do you mean by
Sure.
in between? What do you mean by in between? And how can I get better? How does it actually make me better? Right now we've got coaches who are coaching youth league ball and in some
Starting up.
locales locally. Yeah. Those leagues began this weekend in some areas, and other areas where our listeners are, maybe they're getting ready to begin here in the next couple of weeks or already have. And right now, it's a big time for youth ball. And one of the biggest things that you can do to help your team understand how they can be the best they can be is to help them focus up and learn what to do in these in-between moments, in between pitches, while they're standing in the dugout, while they're out on the field waiting for the next pitch, while they're on base before the next ball is hit. What should you be thinking? What should be going through your mind? What should you be doing? Is it just about cheering and celebrating, the last ball that was hit? Is it about, chewing on sunflower seeds and spitting the shells out? And what's it about? What should we be doing? Or can you do that stuff?
Yeah.
As well?
I was going to say,
is it not that or this, is it that?
I thought you were going to keep going, and my answer was going to be yes.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, let's talk about everybody's favorite position. Right field.
The bench.
Okay, we
right
go to the bench. Yeah, the bench.
Go
the
one
bench
further.
is a position, right?
It is. Yeah, you're
and
in
there's
the game.
A bunch of different roles.
We have a sign in our dugout. That says, "Though we may not all be on the field, we are all in the game."
It's gold. Yeah. So right field, guy hits a single. To left field, he's on first base with no outs. And the next guy up is the 3-hole hitter. He's a pull hitter. Probably no way he's gonna hit the ball to right field, right?
So you can just check.
Yeah,
out,
you just
right?
stand out there, and now here we go. Suddenly it's a boring game. Well, I'm not getting anything done out here. There's nothing going to be hit to me. I don't have anything to do.
Hey, we had a game last week where the pitcher threw complete games, shutout. There was one hit, and not only was there one hit, there were only 3 balls put in play. He had 15 strikeouts in 6 innings, and it was cut short because of a mercy rule. But one of the things we talked about at the end of that game was how when you are on defense and you haven't had any action whatsoever, you've got to do things to keep yourself engaged in the game. You got to keep moving around. You have to keep going through scenarios in your head, because as soon as you pause, as soon as you check out and assume that pitcher's just going to get everybody out, that's when you're going to get surprised with a ball hit to you.
That's a good point. I watched the game the other day where the right fielder, it was a 3-run ball game. I think in the 6th inning, right fielder goes and makes a diving catch to end the inning in the gap between right and center. And I don't recall, but it might have only been the 2nd ball hit to right field that day. So that's a great example there. Not only of a fielder, of a player being prepared to make a play, but also the importance of that position, right? Probably saved the game.
Oh man. Yeah. Yeah. I should tell you this, Pat, I have a right fielder on my high school baseball team that, I'm not kidding you, he might be the best right fielder I've ever coached. Just absolutely outstanding. He was in my 9-hole, and we bumped him up to our leadoff role because our leadoff man unfortunately got injured in practice, and his season is done. He dislocated his ankle and broke the fibula and did all kinds of, there's all kinds of damage in there, and it was a really devastating thing. But next man up, the best opportunity for somebody to get on base for us was our 9-hole and our right fielder. And he's leading in every important category right now offensively, every important category. So you got the batting average everybody loves, but he's also leading in on-base percentage, OPS. He has not struck out yet this year.
Really?
At all. And
nice.
Yeah. And he has embraced over the last 4 years. So in his entire high school career, he has embraced the right field position as his spot, and he just plays it to absolute perfection. He chases down everything hit in the air. Anytime there's a runner on first base, every throw that the pitcher makes to first base, by the time you look up, he's standing on that line. He has run over there to back that throw up. He's backing everything up. He's coming in and covering bases, second base when the ball's hit the left field and the play's coming, and if nobody's there, he's back in. It's just, I wish someone would just put a video camera on him and say, this is how you play that position. It's not about going out there and picking, looking for 4-leaf clovers and having mom and dad getting pissed because you're stuck out in right field. I'm telling you, I'm glad you brought that up as an example because it's a vitally important position, and we've got a guy who's embraced it and loves it and plays it.
And that's so important from a team perspective too, because one, I mean, obviously it's important. It's an important position in the game, but because of that stigma that's put on that position, it's like, oh, it's right field. When you have someone that embraces it and does it so well and has energy doing it, it's a chemistry thing, man. I mean, or I would say a culture thing. I mean, it means so much to the program when someone can do that. And then you think about your youth, in the area, watching that kid play.
Oh yeah,
and the impact that has on them as youth players. It's huge. It's
the impact it has on their desire to want to play out there in the outfield, because they see that some of your best athletes are out there right now. Some of the guys that get a lot of the notoriety are out there running down balls. And
it's good stuff.
It's a good thing.
So what's he thinking?
In between there, when the 3 holes up and there's a runner on first base, I'll bet what Bruce is thinking is, that's his name. I bet what he's thinking is okay, pitcher's going to throw over, so I'm going to be ready to back that up. I'll bet he's in his mind, he's already thinking ground ball. I'm coming up gunning towards third base, low and hard, so that the cutoff man can cut it off if he needs to. But if I need to get that, I need to be able to get the ball there on a long hop, so that we can tag that runner out. If the ball's hitting the air, I'm going to do everything I can to catch it in the air. And if I can't catch it in the air, then we're going to be, looking at probably throwing it, getting it into the relay guy.
By the way, it's a right-handed hitter, so there might be a tail on the ball that's hitting the air.
Sure. If it's coming over to him, right? And he's probably also thinking that if the ball is hitting the gap, and what you would call a sure double, we're looking to throw the ball home, because we want to try to cut that runner down. And so that's where our relay is going to be headed toward. And so there's just a handful of scenarios, and it's not all the scenarios, but it's pretty much all the scenarios of what could come to him on every pitch.
Or what about a unpredictable scenario of, say, like a really hard hit ball, low line drive out to right field. Mm-hmm. Now he has the opportunity to possibly get a force out at second or first.
Sure. Catch it on one hop and come fire in the second.
I've seen right fielders make that play. And in my mind, I thought, how in the world did they make that play? It's almost a bang play.
It was quick.
It had to be, or they wouldn't have been able to make it. You know what I mean? They wouldn't have been able to get the out. And the only answer to that question is they were ready to make the play. They
were ready. They were ready. They had no doubt whatsoever where they were going with the ball as soon as it was hit. And it wasn't probably the first option in their mind of what they were anticipating, right? Because you're not anticipating that particular play. That's an unusual play. But because the ball was hit so hard, and they already had in their mind, they already knew where they were going. They already knew where the runners were. There was just an instinct there to make that play. And that's where you get kids who you say, well, that's a natural athletic play right there. Well, it is, but it's also a prepared play. It's an athlete who's prepared, right? And we were going over some live game situations in practice last week, and we had runners at first and second base. And there was a ground ball. It was kind of a controlled fungo situation. And so I was actually hitting balls where I wanted to, so I could see how our defense reacted. So there was a ground ball hit to second base with runners at first and second, and no outs is what I said. So the second baseman flipped to shortstop to turn the double play. Well, our shortstop, who was a freshman, by the way, guy who's actually going to be playing with us this summer, buddy. He realized as soon as the ball, it was sort of a slower hit ground ball. And so he realized that he probably had no shot at
Yes.
turning the double play, the 4-6-3. And so he faked the throw to first and wheeled around and zipped it down to third and picked
Is
the
that
runner off
right?
at third base. How about that? Yeah. Yeah. Now that's an awareness, and that's pretty athletic play, but that's also an awareness of where your other base runners are during that play. Not only that, where the base runner is running to first, even in the heat of the moment of the play. You're talking a split second, right? And so it's just, if you're not engaged in the game fully,
Yes.
you don't make that kind of a play.
Yeah,
You're just like,
I would say it's a competitive play. We've talked about players being dogs. That's a dog play right there. That's a great play. You didn't tell me about that one. That's good stuff.
I didn't think about it till just now.
I need these updates. Yeah,
that's fun.
That's a good play.
That's fun. That's the kind of stuff we call that's infield. That's an infield play with sauce on it. We say, we'll practice some plays sometimes when we're taking some infield, where I'll say, okay, I'm going to hit it in some tough spots. You're going to turn double play. We'll say this is a double play with sauce. And so like they'll go, second baseman will go barehand, backhand one up the middle, and then just keep the ball in his glove and glove it toward the shortstop to get that out at second, or something like that. Just some kind of play that is what you would consider to be an ESPN web gem or whatever. But if you don't really practice those, you're not going to be able to do them anyway in the games. But you always get an opportunity to have to make a play like that. You remember Brandon Phillips?
Yeah,
throw
absolutely.
The ball between his legs, stuff like that. People are like, man, that's a natural athlete. And someone asked him one time, he's like, oh, I practice that. And we're like, oh, you do? You practice that? Yeah.
Yeah, I would think people would say, well, they'd say two things. One, we're not going to practice that play because it's not something you normally want to do. And then two, they'll say, well, you don't want to do it like the pros do it. You don't want to do it like the best in the world that play the game do it.
Yeah, you've said that before. Yeah, that's just something we laugh at.
That's awesome. That
right.
That you spend time practicing that. That's fun.
Well, and I should say this also, Pat. The day of practice when that shortstop made that kind of a play, that was the practice that we spent the first 45 minutes in classroom session getting having a spirited conversation about the game that we played the night before, where we did not do the in-between stuff very well. And so that there was an extra focus on thinking through those scenarios before every ball was pitched in that practice. And, for the purpose of getting better at something that we really, really seriously failed at the night before. And, I told them this in this meeting, Pat. I broke down the math. I said, how long do you guys know how long an average high school baseball game lasts? Anywhere from, an hour and 45 minutes to 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours way too long for a 7-inning game to last. If you got good umpires who keep things moving and teams that keep things moving in between innings, it shouldn't last that long. But so I said, let's take an hour and 45 minutes. That's our goal is to get the game over in less than 2 hours. So let's take an hour and 45 minutes. I said, in any given game, both teams are going to throw 100 and, if they throw a lot of pitches, we'll say 150 pitches, right? That not with one pitcher, hopefully.
Wow.
Right. But
they're not going to be able to do
like
that.
Like last night, our guy threw it. We had a guy we finished the game in 6 innings, and our guy finished at 88. He had a very efficient game. No hitter, by the way. But that was a no hitter with only 7 strikeouts. So that means that we had to play some good defense, and that's why his pitch count was down so low, because he didn't run deep in the count. But let's just go ahead. Let's highball it and say 150 pitches per team. So that's 300 pitches. So 300 plays in the game take place. And each one of those plays will last anywhere between 4 seconds to 8 seconds, maybe, depending on what happens. If it's just a pitch, ball, he gets the ball back, and now we got another pitch. That's just a couple of seconds, right? So we'll say between 4 and 8 seconds, each play lasts 300 plays. That's about 45 minutes of live action baseball. So this is what our great all-knowing commissioner of Major League Baseball thinks that everybody wants, and he's just flat out wrong. That just everybody just wants a 45-minute long game, right? Let's cut out all the boring stuff. So he's making idiotic rules to because he's completely out of touch with people who love baseball. Rob Manfred is. But anyway, if the live action portions of the baseball game is 45 minutes, but we know baseball games in high school are typically an hour and 45 minutes or 2 hours. Let's just say it's an hour and 45 minutes. That's an hour's worth of time of something happening.
Yes.
That's called a baseball game, right? And so and my question to them was, here's what I want you guys to look yourselves in the mirror and ask yourselves tonight. What do you do for that hour? In that hour's worth of time? Because I know there are a lot of guys that know how to do the action stuff really well. And that's the stuff we practice, right? We practice
all your life,
balls, and we take swings and things like that. Yeah, all your life. You practice for about the 45-minute portion of the game. But what about that in between?
The majority
portion?
Of the game.
Because here's what happens. The majority of the game is the in-between stuff. It's those in-between pitches. And it's, and I think we sometimes think that it's only about cheering for your teammates or telling that guy that, hey, there's a runner at second base and you're helping him out by saying the shortstop and second baseman are coming in and out. And really, honestly, that runner doesn't even need that help. He's not hearing you guys say that. I mean, I don't mind it. Our guy's doing it, but that's something, if he's a good base runner, he doesn't need that anyway. Base coaches don't really need to tell your runners to get back. By the time, if he's really,
it's too late.
Hearing you say back and then getting back, he's picked off. Yeah. So I get it why we do it. It's instinctive and it helps. And that's one of the ways that we tell our kids to stay in the game. But I would rather you watch the pitcher really closely than the second baseman or shortstop. And let's see if we can get some tips on how do we know when he's going to make that move, because that's where your eyes are when you're on base. It's on that pitcher. Let's see if we can get some tips on, does he do anything different when he throws his off-speed pitches? Does he have a certain rhythm? Does he take the exact same amount of time, 10 pitches in a row, whenever he has a runner at first base or second base? Or what does how many times does he look? What does he do? And things like that, and get to know what's going on. And in addition to that, remind yourself every pitch, how many outs? Where are the base runners? How many outs? Where are the infielders? How many outs? Where are the outfielders? How many outs? Where am I going with the ball? How many outs? What am I doing when this ball's hit in the air? What am I doing when this ball's hit on the ground? What am I doing when this ball's hit on the right side? What am I doing when this ball's hit on the left side? I mean, there's so much that we could be doing instead of just spitting
or sulking or something like that. One of the things that you'll hear coaches say in regards to hitting is one of the responsibilities of a leadoff hitter is to go up and fill that pitcher out, right? Find out what he's throwing. How's he throwing? Mm-hmm. And then worst case scenario, you come back to the dugout and you're able to fill your teammates in with a little bit of information. I think the fallacy, I think that's great. That's 100% accurate. The fallacy to that is that it stops at that point. You don't.
Yeah. But that's the guy.
Yeah, exactly. Or that his job is done once that he goes back to the dugout and lets his teammates know, because the evaluation continues at that point, right? Now what's he doing? He's sitting there. He's not going to hit for another 9 or 8 at bats. All right, what's he got to do? Nothing. I'm going to choose sunflower seeds now. I'm going to be upset because I struck out. No, you're still watching the pitcher. You're watching the fielders. You're seeing how they're adjusting to hitters, right? You're observing the game, and you're interacting with your teammates to help them as they get up, and then at the same time you're preparing yourself for your next at bat. All right, as soon as that first at bat is over, now you're looking forward to that second at bat. So it's an opportunity to do things there. I know that you've got some things that you coach your players to do specifically when they're in the dugout preparing to hit. You want to speak to some of those things?
Yeah. One of the things that we've talked about with them is that you can have a lot more at bats than what you actually get when you're in the batter's box. You can have a lot of visual at bats, mental at bats, and part of it is we talk about all the time, about getting in rhythm with the pitcher, dancing with the pitcher, doing, like if anybody's ever done the tango, if you get if you get really good at it, it's just like you're just moving together. Both it's like one person, like one body, but it's two people, but just like one body moving together. And it's like that's your goal as a hitter, is to get in rhythm, tango with him out there. I actually heard one of my kids last night saying that to one of the hitters, tango with him, Willie. And because that's the idea, because we, if you get in rhythm, then your timing is going to be a lot better. Your front, you're going to start your lower body load a lot. Just I don't even want to say sooner. It's not about getting your front foot down sooner. It's about getting it on time, right? It's about being on time. And usually when a hitter's late, it has nothing to do with where he is in the batter's box or or what. It's just you're not in very good rhythm. And so how can you get in rhythm?
Yeah,
while you're in the dugout, while you're standing there, stand there sideways. And I was at the JV game, so I spent my whole time in the JV game in the dugout, so they could kind of see me as a bench coach. And I said, guys, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pretend like I'm a player on the bench during this game. You know what I'm doing right now while we're up to bat? I'm over here, especially if I'm going to bat later in the game, or if I think I might be called upon to bat. I'm going to try, if I don't have any other job to do, they didn't give me a job to keep charts or, stopwatch somebody or, do pitch to home times or do, something like that. If I'm just standing in here and I'm chasing foul balls when they get hit, I'm going to get in rhythm with this pitcher. I'm going to work on getting in rhythm with him. And I'm going to just watch this pitcher. I'm going to study him like a book, and I'm going to get to know him really, really well. And that way, when I get up to bat, I'm ready to go. I don't feel surprised. I'm not looking for him at that time. I'm already in rhythm with him. And I just think those are, that's part of that hour. That's part of that hour.
If nothing else, even if you're doing that bad, right? Even if you're not very good at it, you're staying in the flow of the game. And you're giving yourself I would say there's a certain amount of confidence that you gain in knowing that you're not just reacting to what you need to do, whether it's making a play in the outfield, making a play on shortstop, or going up and hitting.
I lost you for a second.
Pitching, pitchers get time in between pitches, obviously, that's what the game usually waits on. That you mentioned Major League Baseball. That's the thing. That's one of the things that they're attacking now is, how much time that pitcher has to throw that next pitch. Like you said, there's all these opportunities in baseball. It happens in softball as well, but softball is a quicker game. The moments in between aren't as long.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess in that regard.
Yeah.
I guess
true. Yeah.
It makes it a little bit more challenging to do what we're talking about doing because you have less time to prepare. So, maybe from a focus perspective, it doesn't take as much, but from a knowledge perspective, from a concentration perspective of thinking of all the scenarios that you can go through, thinking of all the ways that you can continue to interact in the game, it does, matter for softball just as much. So, yeah, the in-between moments is so important.
Because softball is a fast-paced game, makes this just as important for softball, because when you are ready, because you've gone through scenarios in your mind, the faster the game moves physically,
the harder.
The more the harder it gets to play, and the more you need it to slow down. Well, the way to get the game to slow down is to be as prepared as you can possibly be. Right. You make sure that you show up as prepared as you can possibly be, and then while you're in the heat of the game, you remain as prepared as you can possibly be by being able to react to those kinds of things in the moment. And I think that's so vitally important in the softball game. But it's also, it's actually, the reason I thought about it is because are you building you got some construction going on there in your kitchen now? Or
well, I told you
taking your cookies
I told you I was preparing lunch.
You taking your pizza out?
No, it's in process.
Okay. It's buy one, get one free day. Traditionals.
I know, but the guy that I used to go to lunch with never invites me anymore. So
is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I actually had a guy the other night tell me that because we played a game the night after we had practiced we were very aware of the in between stuff because of the game that we had lost earlier in the week. And so then we played another game, and you could audibly hear the difference in our players and what they were thinking about, what they were talking about between they were having just as much fun. They were being just as enthusiastic during the game, but it was different. And what it was baseball. They were having fun with the baseball aspects of the game.
Sure.
With it wasn't other stuff. It was this. And so I actually had a player tell me, it feels like the game, it feels like things are just slower, like not in a bad way, but it's like when the play happens, I already know I already know what the result's going to be, because it slows down in my mind, right? As opposed to everything's now I got to rush.
Sure.
Now I've got to rush because I don't know what.
Because you're not surprised, right?
Yeah, the ball's hit to me, and either I made the wrong decision, so now I got to rush, or I'm thinking about where to go while the ball's hit to me, so I'm rushing that throw, or I'm rushing. Instead, it's already happened in my mind. Skip Bertman says everything happens twice, for once in your mind and then in real life, and that's the whole idea, is to get guys to play those scenarios in their mind as much as possible.
So you said that the other day you guys had a classroom session talking about this, these in between moments. Have you been able to incorporate this into a practice?
Well, we did that very night. We went straight from that to practice, where we got loose and all we did, and that pretty much that entire first, well, it was actually the entire practice, because we got rained on, so it was a shortened practice. So we had to tarp everything at the end of practice, but we did that. We did a controlled fungo, situational defensive practice, where I used base runners and had one player in each position, and we just rotated players around like crazy.
Yep.
And let everybody run bases, because it's not only defensive practice, it's offensive practice as well. It's base running practice,
right?
And I would just holler out the situation. They would see what the base runners were, and I would give them the normal 4 or 5 seconds to think about what they're doing, let those scenarios go through their mind, and then pitcher would throw it, and the catcher would catch it, and then I would have another ball in my hand, and I would throw it up and hit it wherever I wanted. And that way I could create the situation that I wanted. And so we just, and whenever, and you know what, it wasn't perfect. They made wrong decisions. And so what we got to do during that, this is what practice is for.
Exactly. Right.
Making mistakes.
Yes.
We were able to step out and say, okay, let's think about it. Right. Was it? And typically it was the things like that they're not used to yet. Like, this group of kids isn't used to double cuts. They're just not. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they just didn't grow up with it. They just never done it. But, when you got, a sure double, you go ahead and send, there's no reason for your first baseman to stay on the bag. So he's trailing the runner to second base, and you send 2 cutoff men out there, because it's going to be a longer throw. Yep. So that outfielder is probably going to, it's not because you need 2 throws. It's because, or 3 throws. Yeah. It's because you need a backup cutoff man, because if that throw goes over your first cutoff man's head, well, there's the backup guy to relay the ball in. You're going to need a cutoff. You're going to need a relay. And so instead of sending 1 guy out, you send 2. And so they're just kind of starting to get used to that. And I'll tell you, Pat, it was great, because the very next weekend, so last weekend, Brock's team at Alderson Broaddus ran a double cut with a runner at first base, double cut to right field, right down the line, to absolute perfection, and saved the winning run. The game was tied. They were actually in extra innings, and there was a runner on first base with 1 out, and there was this kid laced a ball down the right field line, sure double down the line. So there's a double cut play where Brock actually ended up being the relay man to home, because he's the first baseman. Right. Yeah. But the second baseman was out in front of him. So he was the double cut guy was the first baseman. The ball is a little high for the second baseman. So Brock's behind him saying, let it go, let it go, let it go. He picks the ball up on a 1-hop and fires it into home, and they get the out at home. And it was just, and he sent me the video later. I wasn't able to watch it. I was keeping track on the live stats, the stat program. And I saw it on the stat program. And I'm like, oh, that's a big relay right there. I wonder what that looked like. Well, then later that night, he sent me a clip of the video, and it was a really cool thing to see. But and here's what he said. Here's what he said in the text. I wish I could open it up and read it, but it was something like this. He said, "I want you to see this double cut play that we executed in the game. We practice this multiple times every day, and maybe only get to do it once in the season. But when we needed it, we did it well." And I mean, that was almost exactly the way he said it, because that's what you do. I mean, you've got to be ready for that, right?
Right, and that's the it's like that's exactly what we're talking about. Because honestly, what are we talking about on a double cut? We're talking about making a throw and a catch, right? And knowing what
being in position.
So knowing what you're supposed to do. So in that in between moment, you're thinking, okay, double cut responsibilities. What is it? Down right field line, down left field line, and left center gap, right center gap. And I know that that was a rhetorical question. Did you incorporate into your practice? One of the things that you've talked about in the past, and that I've actually seen you execute in practices, is when you're having a BP, you're also doing, you're also working on base running. You're also working on live infield plays. And then the outfield is actually making live plays too. They're just not making throws into the infield.
Right.
And sometimes when, I think the key to that drill is what we're talking about. The key to that drill is those in-between moments, because it dictates effort a lot of times in practice. So you'll see, sometimes an outfielder not give 100% effort to field the ball, before they're giving it up to the shagger, right? You'll see them not attack that baseball, or maybe it's less likely on the infield, but sometimes you see it in the infield because the practice at times might get a little slow, and that right there, those are opportunities that you have to practice the in-between moments that directly correlate to games. And so we talk about these things that we talk about. How do we get better at them? You practice them, and just like you said a few moments ago, when you practice, you're going to fail it, right? That's why you practice it, so that you get better doing it. So it's just it's great.
Well, and we also encouraged our guys to speak out loud during the in between moments. Like in that practice where we're doing situational stuff, we said, I want to hear you speaking out loud to your teammates where they're going with the ball, reminding everybody, talking it through. And, once I tell you what the situation is, I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to step back and be quiet for a second. I want to hear it. And then that actually was what was cool about that was that translated to the next night's game, and they were doing it in the next night's game as well. They didn't have to do a lot, admittedly, in that game because the pitcher had such a great game and didn't allow the ball to be put in play very often. But still, it was needed last night. I mean, they did it again last night, and it was very successful. Well,
that's the thing, though. This concept that we're talking about, you're going to go through games and maybe stretches of games where it doesn't have a lot of impact on the game. But when it comes into play, it's going to impact the game greatly. It's either going to impact it in your favor or heavily against you. So it makes a difference, and that's what you're ready to do. Yeah. Preparation, anticipation, so important in the game of baseball. Yeah, it's tough. That's what makes the game so hard. That's why not everyone plays it, Coach.
It is. It's why people think it's boring, because they don't understand that hour, what's going on in that hour's worth of time, right? I know that we've got to get off here soon because you've got a meeting to go to. But one of the things I think we'd be remiss at doing, especially if we actually still have listeners who've listened through the baseball talk that aren't necessarily interested in baseball. But the reality is this in-between moments thing isn't just a baseball issue. It's a life issue, because there's so much of our lives that is lived during in-between times that we either use well or we waste it. And if you look back over the course of your life and you were to log every moment, every hour of your life, I would dare say there are a lot of hours, the majority of the hours of your life is this in between stuff. It's not the big events. It's not the active things. We all have these things that we anticipate. Oh, I'm going to do this later. I've got this going on later. I'm going on this date, or I've got this meeting or this appointment, or we're going on this trip. And those are the big events, but the big events aren't the things that really truly make up who we are and what our character looks like and what our lives look like. It's all the in-between time stuff. What are we doing Absolutely. Then? And I think it's where again, baseball and life just really intersect, because that's an example of what your entire life is going to be like. And are you wasting it, or are you using it?
Because that in-between time impacts the way that you handle those big events, right?
It absolutely, it is a perfect.
You always
metaphor.
have to think about what's going to happen next. What's going to happen next, and how am I impacting that right now?
How am I going to respond? And you may not know how you're going to respond, but you can be prepared to respond positively, regardless of what happens, by the way you live your in-between moments of your life.
Definitely.
That could be things like, I have a lot of in-between time right now where I'm driving. I coach 30 minutes from where I live. And so what am I doing in that drive time? Well, I'm listening to podcasts, and I'm listening to books on tape, and I'm trying to continue, and admittedly, sometimes I'm in meetings while I'm on the road as well, joining my colleagues in meetings. Oh yeah, absolutely. Just like this, like I'm talking right now on a hands-free unit. But it's been one of the blessings of remote work, is being able to do that. It's not my preference, but it's been a blessing.
There's so many things we could tell. This goes into so many different directions. We're talking about success. What successful people do here, they manage their time, right? And they don't. Free time to them is bad time. If they have free time that they're not using for anything, they're not productive, and it's ultimately a waste. So there's all kinds of ways to look at that, but it is an in-between moment. What are you doing in those in-between moments to make the big moments matter, or better, I guess you would say? That's a good thought.
Yeah,
it really is. It's about life. It's about life, and if you learn how to do it I posted this image on Facebook the other day. I can't remember what it says word for word, but it's like everyone talks about getting a scholarship from a high school sport, but high school sports are really meant for, becoming a better teammate and learning how to work within a team and, striving for a goal and, all these, cliche statements there. And, I wouldn't say with any absolute what high school sports are for, but I think that something that is often overlooked is the value that you receive and the experience that you get from high school sports. And as coaches, this is the Coaching Life podcast. Hey, we need to think about how we incorporate those types of things into our coaching philosophy. We're not just coaching a game; we're coaching people, and we've talked about that before as well.
Yeah,
somebody wrote a book on it.
Yeah,
and it's so important. We want to prepare these kids that we're working with for the games. Absolutely. But we want that to translate into life. So coach them up in between moments. Teach them how to respond to them.
No doubt. I think we have the title for this
I think
podcast.
It's there.
What do you think?
Set in
this episode.
We could probably go another 2 hours on this.
Probably could.
Yeah. Yeah. But hey, maybe next time.
Right. We'll have something else. We'll have 2 or 3 topics that I text you and say, hey, let's
forget them.
This, and then forget.
Well, you got to make sure when you give me the ideas, you got to make sure you list them so that we can remember.
I throw a couple
times
out there.
You messaged me and said, hey, I got an idea for a podcast. Remind me. And then.
Yeah.
You're a busy man. I would disagree that you have much free time on your hands. You actually picked out a time that you were doing something as your free time. That's how busy you are. So I know.
driving from place
I think people would be astonished how many things you are checking off your list on a daily basis. I really would, because I know I am.
Here's an example of this, Pat. I was ticked on Sunday afternoon when it started raining at my house because I knew my yard had already my grass is high from where it rained. It was like after one big rain we had a lot of sunshine and then it rained one night, and it was like the grass grew 3 inches that night. It was incredible. And now it's just all of a sudden, boom, it's starting to grow like crazy. It's greening up, and my yard looks absolutely horrible. And I'm like, okay, Saturday we were at Brock's game all day over in Maryland, and I said, okay, so Sunday afternoon after church, I'm mowing the grass. We got Brock on TV that afternoon. I'm like, I'll have time to mow after he's done. It rained all afternoon, and it was cold, rainy. I'm like, I told April, I'm still gonna go out here and mow this down, because I knew coming into this week we had a game every night. We got a game every night of the week. And so, I mean, not our varsity
program,
between varsity and JV,
Absolutely.
we play every night. And then here we go. And then we get to Saturday, we're going to be going to watch Brock again. And so it's just it's that cycle again. And so here's my plan. I told April this morning, I got a headlight on the, I got lights on the front of the mower. So do you think our neighbors will mind if I'm out here mowing at 9 o'clock tonight? So that's my plan. I'm going to mow the grass
Coach,
tonight when I
raise
get
that deck. It'll be a more healthy mow for your yard. And, hey,
yes, it will.
that grass will wait on you. You know that. You've been here
It
before.
will. It's happened before. Yeah, it's funny because the softball coach lives in my same
So
neighborhood.
you guys have matching yards right now.
Our yards, I texted him the other day. I said, boy, you can tell the two guys that are coaching spring sports in this neighborhood. And he just laughed as well.
That's good stuff.
I need to buy a goat.
Oh, look into that. The next podcast topic, goats. A couple different ways to go.
Yes, greatest of all time.
It was good talking to you,
right.
Coach.
Good talking to you. Get to your meeting.
I think I'm gonna go eat lunch. I've been working on it for a while.
Okay, stay productive. Stay productive during that in between time.
We'll see you, buddy.
Yep, we'll see you.